Hello, everybody. I'm coming back to you with my dissertation. So, let's get right on to it. What I'm going over right now, is the literature review, and it's going to be going over title searches and documentation, the past and current history, the conceptual literature, the methodology literature, and the research design. And I go into the historical content is about the foundation for Western philosophical justice and consciousness and leadership. And Western philosophical justice is divided into three parts. We're going to go over Plato's search for justice, the foundation of the American criminal justice system, and the Bible. With the consciousness and leadership portion, I will go over how consciousness affects leadership and the evolution of consciousness. So, I'm just letting you see some of this. Here is an important part. In academic research, a linear historical approach is often not considered about topics. Omitting or ignoring history leads to humanity creating the same mistakes indefinitely. As a result, the literature review aimed to provide an important historical perspective about the topic. And just so you're warned, the literature review could be considered controversial due to the spiritual and philosophical content of history. The researcher chose to emphasize the impact of history about the topic of justice so that there was a clear understanding of how point A led to point B logically. The spiritual and philosophical content was meant to add to the reason why the founders of certain ideas like restorative justice implemented that specific system. This is going to go over, this is my first table that kind of just goes over how the research was done. And in total, I have 124 references. So let's get into the historical content. So, this section includes everything prior to the year 2018, because current history is within 5 years. So let's get into the foundation of Western philosophical justice. So the foundation for the Western perspective of justice was a combination of understanding Plato, Roman law, English law, the criminal justice system, the founding fathers of the United States, and the Bible. Plato is the foundation of the philosophical arguments that extended into the formation of justice and laws for Rome, England, and the USA. The Bible provides spiritual justification for justice, laws, and punishment. Okay, so about 2,500 years ago, Plato pondered the meaning of justice. Plato examined justice because of the injustice that Athenian democracy inflicted upon Socrates. Plato's response to Socrates' death echoed through time to become a topic of debate among the founding fathers of the USA that would lead them to establish a republic and not a democracy. In the republic, Plato's search for justice began with understanding other individuals' perspectives about justice. Plato criticized the different perspectives of justice from, I'm not going to pronounce these names because I'll probably mess them up, but you understand them. Plato decided to investigate justice because of the mob mentality, corruption, and downfall of Athenian democracy that aligned with the unjust prosecution and death of Socrates. So, Plato argued with C's form of justice cannot be righteous. Plato believed that following legal obligations, being honest, will not work if the law advises giving a madman back his weapons. P informed Plato that justice occurs by helping friends and punishing enemies. P's perspective of justice was individualistic and ignores society. Humanity's judgments about friends and enemies associated with good and evil will lead to justice harming good and rewarding evil. T's perspective of justice is to the advantage of the stronger and those that desired more. Socrates argued that T's definition of justice created injustice as a virtue. T's perspective was that life and society were in continual competition for money, power, and to aspire to the material desires of life. Plato's insight argued that success does not equate to being virtuous. Plato concluded with T that justice must be healthy for the soul. Virtue means the health of the soul, and therefore justice must strengthen the soul. Justice must be virtuous. G argued with Plato about justice. Justice became a necessary evil in which everyone suffered other individuals' injustices. Citizens would suffer more without justice, and therefore the practice of justice stemmed from fear and weakness. G believed that people were just because individuals were afraid of the outcome of committing an injustice act. Plato informed G that individuals needed balance and that justice is internal and not external. Justice in an individual reflected the soul. Justice in society reflected the structures of society. That's very important, and that's something that I don't think a lot of our citizens comprehend. The way how, like the United States, implements justice is a reflection of our society. And think about that. I mean, we make a business out of putting people in prison. It doesn't matter if they're innocent or guilty. I'm against the death penalty because just thinking that one person could be sentenced to death and be innocent is just horrifying to me. And the United States has sent people to death that were innocent. And to me, and this is why I don't understand why people support the death penalty so much. Because, to me, if you support the death penalty, then you inherently know that someone who is innocent is going to be put to death. So why are you supporting the death penalty when you know that somebody innocent could be put to death? To me, it makes no sense. And when people go to jail or prison, more than likely people just forget about them. And that also says a lot about our society. It's like, as long as they go up in front of a jury and they're guilty, it doesn't matter whether that person might be innocent. They just forget about him. It's like you're written off, and then even after you do your time, you're continued to be punished because it's hard for you to find a job. So this is a system that needs to be fixed, because it does not reflect American values. And another thing, people worry about racism a lot. Or, that's just the topic of the day. Well, putting people in prison creates racism. Because when they get into prison, they stick to their race. It's like whatever your race is, that's who you're supposed to be in a gang with. And there's various different gangs between races, but that's what continues racism in America, because it's ingrained in them. And then when they get out of prison, most of them don't revert back because society doesn't give a shit about you anymore. And these are things that need to change within our society. And justice is, injustice in America. Plato suggested that a society that reflected the idea of justice would choose philosophers to be leaders. The etymology of philosophy is philein, I'm guessing, which is to love, and Sophia, wisdom. And wisdom is a skill to be obtained. Wisdom has a feminine aspect, which means that care, empathy, and knowledge are part of the skills that a philosopher needs to obtain. And let's see how I'm doing right now in time. Where am I at? We're about 13 minutes in. Debating on... Yeah, let's go into it. So, the foundation of the American criminal justice system. Plato provided the foundation for wise leadership and appropriate justice. The founding fathers of the USA relied on Plato, Socrates, and other historical events to understand what individuals with power should aspire toward. Leadership should inspire a philosophical desire to enrich the consciousness of an organization or government. While the philosophical spirit of Athens and Greece became one aspect of creating the USA, Christianity became another aspect that would inspire Western civilizations. Roman law. Roman law influenced the founding fathers in forming a republic. The logic and organization of the Roman Republic with well-established laws attracted the founding fathers to admire the Roman Republic. The founding fathers had an interest in Roman civil and natural law. Roman natural law was divided between two philosophical arguments, Aristotle and Stoics. Aristotle's idea of natural law applied to reason, while the Stoics' concept of natural law sought ideas within the interactions with animals and nature. Aristotle would influence Locke, that influencing the founding fathers to state that every individual has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. As America progressed as a nation, leaders incorporated Stoic ideas such as the abolishment of slavery and providing animal rights. English law. Around 43 BCE, the Romans conquered a portion of England. Justice during Roman occupation was implemented by an individual or groups that controlled certain parts of England. Once Roman occupation ended, an entirely different justice system was developed in England. England lacked a central government, and therefore local autonomy was initiated as law. Judgments were issued by the community and not the head of state, creating common law. Early America was influenced by Roman law and began to incorporate European models of justice in the late 1800s. Before 12th century England, local communities participated in their form of justice. Beginning in the 12th century, the King of England wrote writs that restricted the local communities. The writs that the King of England wrote would become known as common law. The writs that the king wrote meant that the crimes that were committed were against the king and not the victim. And this is where things get really messed up. And this is something that we have to think about in our current justice system. The king created himself as the victim to seek revenge and impose punishment. And the king robbed the victim of seeking resolution and made it impossible to defend against the tyranny that controlled the resources. Psychologically, as the king interfered in the conflict of the resolution process, the king traumatized the victim and offender. An individual must go through the experience of pain and suffering to grow awareness and consciousness. In the American criminal justice system, the state took the king's place. In organizations, leaders took the place of the king. Now think about that. When you're prosecuted by the DA, the district attorney, you're not actually being prosecuted. You're not actually being prosecuted for committing a crime against someone. You're actually being prosecuted for a crime against the state. So in other words, the state becomes the victim, not the individual. And the same thing goes in the workplace. In the workplace, if you, let's just say you come in late, you're committing a crime, let's just say, maybe not crime, but you're committing a transgression against the organization. The organization is the victim. And to me, that just really sounds odd and strange. And this really, messes things up. So as we continue, let's go. Have you ever asked the question, what comes before law? Well, principle comes before law, and this kind of goes over how that happens. But one of the important things is in the 1930s, unions incorporated the criminal justice system into organizational justice. American law comes from English law. English law comes from Roman law. Principles come before laws. The founding principles of the United States of America are in the Declaration of Independence, and those principles are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness are inalienable rights that cannot be taken away unless by due process. The Founding Fathers considered the United States a constitutional and commercial republic in which the rules and laws reflect the founding principles of the USA. Hamilton et al. Encouraged business organizations to embed the principles of the USA into their organization. Let's see here. We got the Federalist Papers and the Bible. Okay, let's stop right here before we go into the Federalist Papers. So I'm going to leave this part with you for you to kind of ponder before we dive into the Federalist Papers and continue on with this. But and I read this a little bit more verbatim because I would say this is an important part of understanding why I did this dissertation and the importance to it. And the other thing, as you can tell up in the beginning, I kind of made a little mistake. I think I gotta go back over, but that's okay because this is kind of helping me verbally read out to fix any kind of other errors that I might have in the paper. So if you see anything while I'm reading this, go ahead and let me know, because I gotta put my final edits in before I publish this on ProQuest and the Library of Congress. So this will go into there, but I want you to if you want to ask me any questions about anything that was just read, especially when it deals with the American criminal justice system or anything like that, just kind of go ahead. I just wanted to go over some of those things because the whole basis and purpose of this is to enlighten people, to show different perspective that they may not see, and open their mind to better our society. And that's what I truly am trying to do, is I'm trying to create a guide to evolve consciousness and to create more leaders. Because as a leader, I want to create more leaders because the United States lacks leadership, or I would say just leadership or appropriate leadership and great leaders, because we have poor leadership in this country, and that mostly has to do with the way how those leaders have implemented certain ways on how to basically keep the population dumbed down. And I'm trying to break that cycle. Let's evolve our consciousness. Let's go into higher forms of consciousness. And this is what I'm going to discuss. So I'm going to leave this part with you here. So that you can ponder some of the things that I've talked about. And I've decided that I'm going to probably jump between this, and I know that I was on Brian's podcast, and I wanted to create a more fulfilling outline, so I'm going to go over that a little bit too. But other than that, I'm going to leave this here for today. Almost at 25 minutes. Looks like it'll be 24 minutes. And I think that's good enough. So, you all have a good one and stay positive. Peace. Bye.